On this Goulet Q&A, I announce all of the Thanksgiveaway winners, I talk about Lamy 2000, nibs, and I tell you how I would design a Goulet pen. Hey, Brian Goulet here of GouletPens.com, and this is episode number 104 of Goulet Q&A. It's kind of a special one today because I took off last week because of Thanksgiving. If you're watching from outside of the States, basically everything shuts down for Thanksgiving. Well, then retail sales usually start to go nuts. But we actually shut down Thursday and Friday last week, so we did not have a Q&A, intentionally took time off with my family, gave all of our team time off with our families, and so this week, it's been completely nuts because we have been trying to catch up from a 4-day weekend with one of the busiest retail weekends of the season. So it's been fun, but our team's been busting it. We're more or less getting caught up at this point. Finally, by the end of the week here, it's been pretty crazy, but our team's been working really, really hard. So thank you for your patience there. It's kind of special. I'm not going to leave you hanging too long. I know everybody's excited about the Thanksgiveaway winners, but just for a minute, let me explain what Thanksgiveaway is. So I'm not like really big into doing huge sales and promotions and stuff like that. It's just kind of not my thing. I would rather provide consistent value kind of day in and day out, and then do value add things like videos and such. So, something rather than doing, all these free promotions and stuff like that, we focus our efforts on, doing something different called Thanksgiveaway. We started doing it a couple years ago. This is now our third one. And so basically what it is for the whole month of for the whole month of November, we call it Thanksgiveaway. So we basically give away prizes, and we have a write-in contest that you can get free stuff, basically. But the whole theme is basically around just thanking you for supporting us, for just the community being so thankful for each other. And we had a grand, several different prizes, but the grand prize was the Visconti Homo Sapiens. And it was really cool. We got a ton of entries. We ended up getting 733 total entries. And basically the entry was you had to send in a handwritten letter saying what you were thankful for. So it was pretty cool, and I really, really enjoyed, getting to see them. I have not personally read every single letter, but Madigan from our community coordinator, she has literally opened up and read every single letter that came in. It's been a huge commitment of time and energy, but I've gotten to read a lot of the highlights of some of the most meaningful ones, and it's been just completely amazing to see just what you all have going on in your lives, and just how open a lot of you were towards what you have going on, and just what you're thankful for. A lot of them were thankful for Goulet pens and stuff we do, which obviously is feels good for us, but really just other things that weren't even related to us or at all. But it was just really, really meaningful. Like, we were blown away by how meaningful a lot of these were. So it's really kind of changed us, I think. And we go through this every year with Thanksgiveaway, that just we are blown away by just some of the emotion that you all pour in, and the care and the artistry that some of you put into your stuff. It's really cool. However, for the giveaway portion of this contest, we make it completely random. So as long as you qualify and have all of our contest rules and everything up to par, then we just give everybody a number, and then we go to random.org and choose winners, because if we had to do it subjectively, it would just be way too hard. And there would be no fair way to do it. So this is the fairest way that we know to do it. So that said, we have all of our winners selected. So all of our letters came in. It was kind of crazy because we had 4 days off because of the Thanksgiving, and then the 30th November was the last day to qualify, so we had a slew of entries, like several hundred entries come in right on Monday. So it was kind of nuts. So we have been sorting all of that out, selected the winners. So let me go ahead and get to it here before I get into the Q&A questions. The surprise entry winner, which is basically the write-in portion of the daily contest that we did, that was for a Noodler's Neponset fountain pen. And the winner is, I'll show you the letter here. I've tried to hide the personal info, but this is Max from Salt Lake City. So congratulations, Max. You've won yourself a Noodler's Neponset. And I will say for all of the winners here, we're going to be contacting you by email as well. So it's okay if you don't have, you know, all of our info and stuff like that. We're going to be contacting you. That's why we made the email a requirement for the contest entry. Then we have some runners-up, which are going to get a Lamy All-Star and a A5 Filofax notebook. So that's pretty cool. Nice little set there. First one we have is Katherine from Frisco, Texas. Nice handwriting there, Katherine. So congratulations to you. We'll be reaching out to you. Next one we have is Jen from Los Angeles, California. Very kind of cool. Nice little leaf there, a little drawing. That was kind of cool. Next one we have is John from Boston, Massachusetts. So congratulations to John. Then we have, and I realize there could be several Johns from Boston, so that's why we're going to be reaching out to you by email. I'm trying not to give any personal info away here, but that makes it kind of hard to choose a winner. Okay, then we have Brad from Fayetteville, Arkansas. Congratulations, Brad. And last one we have is Dana from Stevens Point, Wisconsin. So congratulations to all of you for winning an All-Star and a Filofax notebook. Now we're coming up on the big ones here. We gave away two, no longer available Monteverde Invincia Deluxe Nighthawks. These are a matte black carbon fiber pen that we had as an exclusive several years ago. I've been hanging on to a few of them for years so that we could do something special with them, and we thought Thanksgiveaway is pretty special. So that's what we chose to do this time. So I have two winners for that. And the first one is Candice from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And I just want to make sure. Okay, so Candice, very nice handwriting here, Candice. And also did a very cool card to go along with it. I mean, how cool is that? And then also did a really nice envelope as well. So very cool. Well, it seems like a little parallel with some gradation going on there. So that's pretty neat. So congratulations, Candice. You're getting one of my favorite pens of all time. And then the other one that we have for the Monteverde Invincia Nighthawk is Christina from Pullman, Washington. Congratulations, Christina. You are also getting one of my favorite pens of all time. And then the big grand prize that I'm sure all of you are curious about, though you probably already read it in the description that we're undoubtedly put on the blog. But anyway, so the grand prize winner, this is for a full-size Visconti Homo Sapiens pen. Your choice of nib is Riley from, where are you from, Riley? Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Congratulations, Riley. You now have 732 people jealous of you. So, congratulations to all of our winners. If you didn't win, I'm incredibly sorry, but the thing that I will say is that it was very evident from reading a lot of your letters that it wasn't just about trying to win something. It was actually really probably a very, meaningful exercise to go through, to actually think through what you're thankful for, go through the exercise of handwriting it. And it's just very evident how much you all care about your pens, about what they mean to you, and just in general, other things you're thankful for. So that was super, just really touching to see all of that. And it was a great pleasure of ours to be able to host it this year. So congrats to all of our winners. If you didn't win, I'm incredibly sorry, but it was still an honor to read your stuff. And there's always next year. All right, so let me clean up my desk just a little bit here. Got some, catching you up to speed here. So we had Thanksgiveaway. That's obviously been very much on our mind. Some other things that we have going on. Products. Let me talk products just for a minute, and then we'll get into the questions. So we got some new Rhodia notebooks in, some Rhodia Ice notebooks. So these are similar to regular Rhodia. These are some side staple bounds. We got a little guy here, and this is going to be a graph ruling. And it's the nice thing about the Ice, it's got this kind of white cover with this silver logo, but it's also got this kind of subtle gray lining on it instead of the normal Rhodia kind of bluish purple. So that's pretty cool. Same thing in the larger staple bound size, graph and lined in this version. And then there's a Rhodia A5 meeting notebook as well, which the format's pretty cool. So it's got a date and then room for some header up here, and then notes and action points as well. So, and then on the back of each page, it has just more room for notes and action. So help you organize your meeting stuff. I'm going to be getting one of these and trying it out for myself. And the cool thing about this one, you know, normally you have 80 gram paper in these rodeo notebooks, but the meeting notebook has 90 grams, so slightly thicker. So I'm going to be playing around with that, trying to check it out. But good stuff. Good stuff. So that's coming from Rhodia. You can check those out. We've got them available right now on our site. Also, Filofax. This is the size of the notebooks that we just gave away, but this is the new color they have called Pear, which very much looks like a ripe Bartlett pear. So really kind of cool. It's, initially I was kind of like, ooh, green, then I was like, actually it's kind of growing on me. So I don't know. Neat new color. It's going to be available in both the sizes we currently have, plus eventually there are going to be some larger sizes, like an A4 size Filofax notebook that's coming out sometime soon in pear as well as the other colors. So that's pretty cool. I don't know exactly when we'll have those. It'll be after the holiday season though, I believe. So let's see here. I think that catches you up to speed on everything that I have here to show. Oh no, also got some other stuff. Okay, so the Visconti Opera Master in the blue swirls, we've been waiting for it. We got a couple pens in, but then we didn't get the rest of them, so we decided to hold off launching them. We're supposed to get them as of the recording of this video today on Thursday. Hopefully we'll have them already on the site for sale by the time this video launches, but if something crazy happens, who knows. We were supposed to get the shipment on Wednesday, and then, you know, UPS didn't end up putting the boxes on the truck, so it got delayed, and just crazy stuff happens with shipments around this time of year. It really does. Just everybody starts to get a little busy. So this is the Opera Master Blue Swirl. So it's the same basically pen format as the Crimson Tide that I've been talking about for a little bit. So same format of pen, different color. Rhodium trim, still got the palladium nib on it, Dream Touch nib. It writes so nicely. Oh my gosh. I've been using the medium nib on my Crimson Tide and it is fantastic. Same nib as on the Homo Sapiens and the Divina and stuff like that. They are numbered pens, and you know, they're not as demonstratory as the Crimson Tide is. Crimson Tide, you can see straight through them. This one is really kind of frosted, so you can still definitely see your ink level, but it's got that frosted finish to it. And then it's got blue swirls in there, hence the name Blue Swirl. And then it's got a blue cap as well. My pen system in the top, so you can swap that out for some, you know, jewels if you want. And the cool thing about this pen is that it comes with a Visconti blue crystal inkwell, which normally costs $300. So nice little flip top inkwell there. I haven't used it yet for myself. I don't know how amazingly practical it will be because it's got a little rubber seal on the top of it, but I don't know if it would, like, you know, be airtight for years and years kind of thing, but it certainly looks awesome. So I'm gonna be keeping it out just so that I can look at it because it's blue and I love blue and it's amazing. So that's kind of cool because the pen itself, you know, is its normal price, $1,095 list price. And you can put it in your cart to see what price we have it for, and then the inkwell is basically free. So that's pretty sweet little deal from Visconti there, if you happen to want that pen. Talking a little bit more Visconti, we're gonna have the other trim of this exclusive Crimson Tide. This is the rose gold one. We still have a couple left, but the black rhodium trim is gonna be coming soon. So a little bit of a delay on that due to the nibs, but they're finally coming in, and those, we're only gonna have 20 of them. Well, technically 19 because I'm gonna keep one, but those will be available for as long as they're available. Probably not all that long, but if you're interested, and go check that out. They're $9.95. And then the another thing that Visconti's coming out with that we haven't really talked about yet because we need to see it for ourselves and get pictures of everything. It's called the Visconti Art of Writing set. So I don't have it yet to show you because it hasn't yet arrived. It's literally supposed to come in a couple hours. So I don't have it to show you, but it's basically a smaller pen body of the Van Gogh. I think it's called the Van Gogh MIDI or something like that. Or maybe not the Van Gogh. I don't even know the exact format of the pen, but it's a discontinued size of pen. But it has interchangeable nibs, which includes a flex nib, an extra fine nib, and some other, like a stub or something like that. And then it's also got another glass pen holder. So it's got 4 or 5 different interchangeable nibs, and it's gonna be just over $200. So that's pretty cool, and it'll come in a nice little box. Cool for the holidays, but I think just the set itself is gonna be really interesting. So I'll be playing with that some more and talking about it more once I kind of figure it out. But tell you what, Visconti is keeping us busy. Just all the new stuff they're coming out with, and from what I understand, They're not going to be slowing down in 2016 either. So that's pretty cool. And then just a quick note, we're going to be restocking the Visconti traveling inkwells. I know I shot this video on it, and then it's been, you know, basically months since we've gotten any. Visconti has just been out of them. So we're going to be getting restocked on them really soon, like hopefully early next week. Though I don't have an exact date yet, it kind of keeps getting delayed and pushed back. So we have a lot on order. We have a lot of people that want them, so just be on alert for when those arrive. Sign up for the email notification if you haven't already on the site. And that kind of catches you up to speed there. Let's go ahead and get into the questions. All right, starting out, I got a pen and writing question here. This is from Dolfandad79 from YouTube. I love the video discussing the Lamy 2000 quality control with Drew Brown. You always say for $150 you can't go wrong with a Pilot Custom 74 in blue, of course, or a Lamy 2000. True. I was wondering, since the Pilot Custom 74 doesn't have a sweet spot issue per se like the 2000, would this be a safer pen to go for that next level pen? That's a great question. You know, it's definitely sparked a lot of interesting conversation, this Lamy 2000 video. And we knew that it would. Drew, for context, if you haven't seen that video, Drew is our customer care manager. He's been with us for almost 4.5 years now. So he's been here for a long time, has played with as many or more pens as I have. Maybe not as many different types of pens, but he's basically been the one to inspect all of the Lamy 2000s that have ever come through this place. So he and I have had lots of discussions about it. And basically Lamy 2000 has this reputation for, you know, having a quality control issues is what people keep saying. That's not actually the case. It's really kind of a design thing, and it's interesting because I'm even kind of learning some things. You know, one person commented on YouTube that's the style of nib that Lamy has grounded that 2000 is kind of indicative of older German style nibs. I'm not that versed on vintage nib grinds and stuff like that, but that would seem to make sense to me if that was the case, because the pen is coming up on its 50th anniversary next year. Here's hoping they do something cool. I don't know for a fact if they will or not, but one would hope they would do something cool for the 50th anniversary. But either way, you know, the pen is what it is. It does have a fine sweet spot, basically based on the rotation of the pen in your hand. And because it's got a round kind of tapered grip, it can be easier than that pen than on some others to over-rotate it and then have flow issues, which then a lot of people say it's quality issues because they read about other people not having any issues, they have issues with it, yada, yada, yada. They think it's quality control. It's really not. It's kind of just getting used to that sweet spot. And that's what we tried to show in that video. Drew is a huge fan of that pen personally. His enthusiasm came across in the video. So he tried to give context because we're getting a lot of people that are writing in their order comments or saying, I'm really interested in buying this pen, but I hear there's quality control. Can you please inspect it? Can you please this? Which we're happy to do. But it was kind of like breaking his heart every time he reads that. Like, it's really not a quality control issue. He's checked hundreds of those pens, and very seldom, you know, it's got one of the lowest quality control problems of any pen that we see. So everybody has their quirks, and no manufacturer is perfect. But there is no widespread quality control issue. So anyway, that's context. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. Talking about next level pens. So this type of pen in the Custom 74, Pilot Vanishing Point is another good one, Pilot Falcon. These are all pens that are like kind of entry level gold nib pens. A lot of people recommend and talk about. And if you're considering, you know, when I shot my 7 next level pens video, I was thinking next level steel pens basically. So if you go from a Metropolitan or Safari, you want something more in the $40 to $100 range. That was what I was considering to be next level, because that is for a lot of people. But for many people, next level is going from steel to gold. So that's kind of another common verbiage that people use. So I've been toying with the idea of, should I do like a, you know, next level gold nib or some other kind of different, you know, gold edition. I don't know. That's not bad. I actually just thought of that. Next level gold. But something along those lines of entry level gold nib pens. Definitely, excuse me, Custom 74, Lamy 2000, Vanishing Point. Those would all be right in there. So specifically comparing the Lamy 2000 Custom 74, I carry both of those around with me in my daily carries. I use them very regularly. I love them both for slightly different reasons. I will say the Custom 74 nib is a little bit drier. It's a little bit more forgiving on the sweet spot for sure, like you pointed out. It's also a finer ground nib. So that fine nib on the Custom 74 is finer than the extra fine Lamy 2000. That's just how it is. You're talking a Japanese versus a very like staple Japanese versus a very staple German nib. So they're going to be ground a little bit differently. That said, I like the convenience of the Lamy 2000, the piston filling, as well as the snap cap. I really dig that. Custom 74, I'm not as in love with from a design standpoint. I think it's very attractive, and of course blue is my favorite color, so I like that one, but it's not necessarily like, you know, my favorite design pen. Just saying. I love the way it writes. That's why it's one of my favorite pens of all time. The Lamy 2000, I do very much enjoy the way that it writes. If I could have the Custom 74 nib experience on a Lamy 2000, well, that would be tops for me personally. But I like the hooded nib, which stays a little wetter on the Lamy 2000. I do like that a lot. Ink capacity, actually the ink capacity is not vastly different between the two. It's a little bit higher on the Lamy 2000, but the Custom 74 has that Con 70 in it, so that actually stays pretty high up there. And then of course you have options for cartridges and other things too. And then the other difference is going to be the springiness. You know, because that nib is longer the tines are longer on the Custom 74, it feels springier. You got a little more bounce as you're writing. It's not necessarily the line variation that you can get some if you press it, but it's more for the kind of the feel as you're writing. The Lamy 2000 nib is actually fairly stiff, even for a 14 karat nib. It's a very short nib. If you pull the nib out of that pen, you can see it's only about this long, whereas a Custom 74 is like, you know, this long. So that makes a difference. But I do enjoy both of them very much. So I would say it's really going to depend on what factors you're looking for. Either one is going to be a pretty good choice for you. I think you'd be happy with it. Now I got a couple of ink questions. Okay, this is from Kevin L on Facebook. My question concerns converters. Are you of the opinion that a wider opening would result in better ink flow? Okay, so that would seem to make sense. You know, if you think about like a garden hose or something, like the bigger it is, the more it could flow through it. That's not really the case because it's not pressure that's causing it to come through. It's capillary action. And basically capillary action is not going to be restricted by the size of the container that's holding the ink, or the reservoir, if you will, or even that opening. Because essentially what you have is you have a feed on the back of that nib that's connected to the nib that is going up into the ink reservoir. And it's just this tiny little slit in that feed that's allowing the essentially water, ink is mostly water, to flow through that feed. And the housing on the converter basically goes usually around a post that fits on the outside of that feed. So however big the opening on the converter is, doesn't really matter, because it's only that tiny little slit that feed has cut in it that is allowing your ink to flow through. So it has much more to do with the design of the feed in the nib itself than it does with the converter. So it actually doesn't really matter. The only time it really makes a difference is a converter like the Pilot Con 50, which actually is one of the wider mouth openings out there. But because it has this kind of step design on the converter, which if you have one, you know what I'm talking about, the ink can actually hang up in the back of it. And if you're writing and ink is hanging up in the back, it's not dropping down to get to the feed at all, and it can dry up on you. That they've basically fixed that, because in the last couple of years they've been putting a metal agitator in there. So that is not really an issue anymore. But it is somewhat of an explanation of how maybe the design of the converter could affect flow, but it has less to do with how, like, whether it's a dry or a wet flow. It's more about, like, is the ink getting to the back of that feed at all? So it's really more about the feed than the converter. All right, Gina S on Facebook says, is it feasible to swap ink cartridges in and out of pens after they've been punctured? The cartridge is not the pens. Ha, thanks for the clarification. I'm thinking specifically about Pilot parallel pens. I have several colors of their cartridges, and I don't want to waste a lot of ink trying to swap out cartridges only to have them dry out. I know I could buy Pilot Con 50 converters for all of them, but I'd like to use the ink I have on hand before I do so. Okay, Gina. Well, yes, you can swap the cartridges in between those pens. Absolutely. That cartridge is just a housing for the ink. So you can do whatever you want with that ink. The only thing that you won't really easily be able to do is save those cartridges outside of the pen, because essentially you think about it like an open container of any beverage, liquid of any kind. It's going to evaporate if you just leave it open. So if you pull the cartridge out of that pen and just leave it sitting there on your desk or whatever, it's going to dry out after a couple of days. Like, it's not going to take that long. So you want to make sure that it's installed in a pen, or I've heard of other people using like hot glue gun or something like that to try to seal up the end of their cartridges. Personally, I feel it's more trouble than it's worth, but it's totally fine for some people to do that. So that said, if you're going to be swapping cartridges from one pen to another, it's interesting that you talk about it in the parallel, because the parallel actually comes with mixable ink cartridges, and the parallel is made to have kind of the ability to mix the ink colors in the pen and be able to have a gradation effect as you're writing. That's one of the coolest things about the parallel. However, you don't want to just up and mix ink colors, especially from different brands, in your pen without knowing how they're going to react. The Pilot Parallel mixable inks cartridges, which is what comes in the pen, you can also buy them separately. You know, they're designed really for the parallel. They're made to be mixed with each other, so you're cool to do that. Of course, knowing that if you have a black ink and you put a red cartridge on a pen that was previously inked with black and you're not cleaning it in between, it's going to be black for a while, and then it's going to turn kind of a darkish, muddy, blackish red, and then eventually, as that converter works its, or sorry, as that cartridge ink works its way through, it's going to turn to just plain red. So you're going to have a period of time where it's going to transition through, which is kind of a cool effect that some people like. However, if you're mixing two different kind of incompatible inks, then you could end up having some kind of negative chemical reaction happen inside your pen. That would not be good. So you don't want that to happen. Now, some inks will react more than others. I wish I had like an exhaustive, these inks are good, not good to mix with each other kind of thing. I don't have a list like that, because with close to 600 different colors of ink and no real data coming from any of the manufacturers about what's good to mix with each other, there would be no way to knowing that without actually mixing it and experimenting myself. There are good resources, like on the Fountain Pen Network has a good ink mixing sub-forum that you could check out, but that's really all I've got about that. So I would say if you're going to do that, make sure that you're cleaning out your pen. For your specific situation with the parallel, you can swap those cartridges and it's fine, as long as you know the gradation thing is going to happen. But if you're going to be doing that with any other pen or with any other type of ink, I would usually recommend cleaning out the pen completely before you go sticking a partially used cartridge into another pen. But other than that, there's no problem doing it at all. All right, got a paper question. Joshua Paul Ramey on Twitter said, does it matter if paper is acid-free? How can we tell if it is? I'm looking specifically at the Rhodia web notebook. Okay, great question. Acid-free is much more common these days. It was a period around the 1930s where paper started to have a lot of lignin in it, which is what causes a lot of the acidity in paper, and that causes degradation of the paper over a relatively short period of time. Causes it to yellow, degrade, crack, and it's not good for not even necessarily archival purposes, but even just lasting a single person's lifetime. Usually archival, you're thinking hundreds of years, 500 to maybe 1,000 years. But when you're getting into the situation of, having acidity in your paper, having a lot of lignin, that creates degradation very quickly. So most decent paper made these days is acid-free, because that has just kind of become more of the standard. But a lot of manufacturers will specifically advertise them as being acid-free. Rhodia is one of them. They're acid-free, pH neutral, so you're going to be in good shape. I looked on the outside sleeve of the Rhodia, and it doesn't actually say acid-free on the packaging itself, but I can tell you that it is, so you're in good shape there. But in the grand scheme of things, I would look, if it's something that you really want to, journal and archive for, a couple of lifetimes, I would try to look somewhere to see if you can find that it is specifically acid-free. Or if you have any questions and we don't have it, we have a Q&A section on our site, or you can shoot us an email and we're happy to answer. There's also a really good, if you want to learn even more details about like what makes paper acidic and stuff like that, you can check out Wikipedia. Has a really good page called Acid-Free Paper and explains a lot of why and how and what and all this kind of stuff, more so than I've explained here. All right, got a business question. This is from John Lee on YouTube. Brian, if you could separate out all your customers into those you would consider to be collectors and those you would consider strictly users, what would the percentage be? Also, with all your business connections and your own customer base, as well as where they live and what you would say is a percentage of people that use fountain pens by country, continent, and in the world. I don't have like any Big Brother personalized data on all my customers to be able to tell you who's a user, who's a collector, who's this kind of stuff. It's more of from engaging and talking to people, I have a really good kind of gut sense of how people are using these pens. I can say because of the nature of my videos, the nature of questions that come into the Q&A on every week, very, very heavy user crowd. You know, we started out this company selling ink and paper. We didn't even sell pens for the first year of our business. It was only ink and paper. So clearly we didn't have collectors, except, you know, then some certain limited edition inks started to come out. Some people collect those, but a lot of people use them. Usually if people are in a collecting kind of situation around here, it's let me buy two so that I can use one and save the other. But honestly, even people that are buying pens like the Opera Master here, which is a limited edition pen by all means, a lot of people are still using them. So we have a very, 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 very heavy user crowd. I would say probably 99% of our customers are buying their pens to use them, which I think is awesome because that's what they're made for. You know what I mean? That said, there are still some collectors. There are people that buy the limited edition Lamy Safari, or special edition Lamy Safari colors and stuff like that and just put them away in a drawer. I'm kind of one of them. I have a whole collection of Safaris and All-Stars and stuff. And if I want to use one, I'll usually get a duplicate or something like that. Or like swap out the grip and use it, you know, on that pen and keep the color, you know, in more pristine condition. I would say in general, collectors are less common now than they were, especially like in the 90s and early 2000s. It's just not really as hot of a thing as it used to be for collecting in the fountain pen world. You know, I hear stories from retailers that have been around for a long time before I was around of what it was like to be selling pens in the 90s and stuff like that. And it was collecting was like the hot thing. Not nearly as much these days. There are definitely still a lot of limited edition, special edition things that come out now. And there are certainly people that like to have collections, but it's definitely not, at least in terms of my customer base, my fan following, it's not anywhere near a majority. And then some of the follow-up questions you had about like by country and stuff like that. We definitely primarily serve the U.S., being a U.S.-based company, that especially dealing with, you know, exchange rates and postage fees and duties and taxes and stuff like that. It's just way more economical for U.S.-based customers to buy from a U.S.-based store than it is overseas. But we still have, you know, a fair amount of overseas business, which we love to serve the international community as well as we can. So that is very much skewed in that way. Definitely as far as like more of a worldwide perspective, I mean, Asia, she's China, especially Japan, huge fountain pen cultures. India's got a big fountain pen culture as well. We don't cater as much to those communities because they are such a strong fountain pen culture. They have all kinds of fountain pen brands and everything that are already serving in the country. So, you know, we'll have specialty things like over there that we'll send, but it's not a big part of our business over there. You know, there are fountain pen cultures very strong in Germany, Italy, France, UK, Japan. Those are really kind of the big ones. And you can really tell who has a strong fountain pen culture by where are the fountain pens being made from. You know, those are the countries where they're coming out of. Not a lot of them coming out of the US, not a lot of them coming out of, you know, other countries, you know, South America and things like that. Though there are a lot of countries that have some stronger cultures, but it's not like as ingrained as they are kind of in those, you know, Japanese, German, all those kind of countries. So that tends to be kind of stronger where they are. And then it depends, you know, for us as far as which brands might be popular. Noodler's is more popular in Europe because they can't get it there. For us, than say Dimene, you know, which is readily available in the UK and it's cheaper over there. You know, we don't sell a lot of Pilot to Japan, as you might guess, because that's where it comes from and they can get it cheaper there than importing it here and then exporting it back out. So that's just a little insight there into some info that I have. Let's see here. I got 14 minutes left on my battery, so we're gonna see. I didn't get the charger this time. So I got 4 questions left. We're gonna see if we can do it. All right, Oliver M on Facebook. Regarding your first steps into the pen world, would you consider launching your own fountain pen brand or a Goulet model made by an already existing brand? Also, if so, what would be the specs? This is something I've certainly considered talking about. You know, the earliest days of Goulet pens, I was hand turning pens on my lathe in an apartment balcony. So that certainly could get back to my roots someday. I'm not going to get back into hand turning pens. I can say that right now. It's just not economical for me to do that time-wise. We do have an exclusive pen already, the Edison Nouveau Premier. That is a pen that we've had exclusively for almost 5 years now with Edison. So they make it, we designed it together. They make it exclusively ours, and we'll have it for a foreseeable future. We've certainly talked about designing more. We did a second model of Edison Nouveau called the Encore that we then discontinued because it was not popular. And it didn't make sense for us to continue doing it. So we've certainly been open to the idea of doing that, as we're already doing it, not just with Edison, but we can talk to some other companies and see its economies of scales where it gets into. Edison's a small manufacturer, so we can do it in an economical way. Going to somebody like, I don't know, Visconti or Lamy or something like that, they're going to need much larger quantity. Well, Visconti in the grand scheme of things is really kind of a boutique manufacturer. If we go to like Pilot or Lamy or somebody like that, they are just so big compared to us that we would need to literally buy thousands or tens of thousands of pens to do any kind of an exclusive thing, you know. So it's just obviously kind of unrealistic for us to do that, and very speculative because we just, you know, we're not that big in the grand scheme of things in terms of like worldwide pens. And that was very evident to us when we visited Pilot. We were just like, oh my gosh. We visited Pilot USA in Jacksonville, and it was just like, wow, this is enormous. So we've talked about doing that kind of thing. You know, we could certainly do some exclusive, or we could do like a white label kind of thing where we have somebody make a pen for us and then we just brand it as a Goulet pen. That's, you know, that's what you see when you like go to the grocery store and you see like, you know, a Target brand, whatever thing. Target isn't making their own headache medicine, and they're not making their own milk and their own other stuff. They're having somebody else do it, and they're just putting their own label on it, and it's the house brand. That's how they do it. We could do something similar, have another manufacturer that really knows how to make pens, have them make them for us, and we just brand it with our own. You know, that would certainly be an option. But we haven't, you know, worked that out. We do have exclusive, you know, with some other, well, I mentioned Edison. We've also got the Conklin Durograph in Ice Blue. That's one we have right now, the Visconti Crimson Tide. That's an exclusive. That's not really a Goulet pen. That's just an exclusive deal that we have. But we could certainly look to do a more collaborative thing. We've talked about, you know, manufacturing in-house, getting a lathe, turning our own pens, you know, Edison-esque. That is much more involved and is really kind of a divergence. Then you're into full-on manufacturing, and I'm not sure that we're ready to handle that. We're having conversations about it, though. It's on the table. You know, it's not a big secret. We could make pens. You know, Edison does it. Franklin Christoph does it. Bexley does it. You know, it's possible. Karas Customs. You know, there's other pens, other brands that can do that. You know, does it make sense for us? I don't know. Still got to do more research on that, but. Since you asked me what would be the specs, you know, obviously love the Edison pens. You know, doing something like that would be more feasible. You know, something without a lot of metal components, because I don't have a lot of experience working in metal personally, so we would have to find resources in that way. Though I think that would be pretty cool. That I would probably look to go more the route of like contacting like, hey, Visconti or somebody like that. You know, could we design something exclusively with you? Have you guys make it, since you have all the equipment and the knowledge and everything, the expertise to do it, and then we just collaborate on the design and do it, just buy them. So that would be probably more economical for us to do in the short term. Long term, yeah, I could see making a Goulet pen. It's not outside the realm of possibilities, but it's definitely not anything that's like impending immediately. And you know, it's design-wise, you know, I basically don't want to say anything because, you know, I appreciate a lot of different pens, but I don't want to give anything away as to what ideas I might have in the works. So total tease on that one for you, but gives you a little insights into my mind. Alan Y in an email said, now you become a successful Visconti dealer. Do you see the company branching out into, or our company, I guess, branching out into some other luxury brands? I ask because I'm a huge fan of a couple of the Mont Blanc inks, and while a 149 may not be in my immediate future, I'd love it if you carried toffee brown and Irish green. Okay, that's cool. I get asked about that a lot. Visconti definitely is more in like the luxury brand, you know, kind of category. A lot of the other brands that we have that have luxury type products, you know, think about like Aurora Delta, you know, Pilot with Namiki, you know, even like Lamy's getting into some higher end stuff. You know, a lot of those we don't typically carry like the high end stuff because that's just not where our roots are. You know, with Visconti now, we're certainly showing like, wow, these pens are sweet. We understand them better. We have more, you know, more of a demand for them now that we have a broader reach. And it's certainly something that we could expand more into. I can say like I'm a scruffy hoodie kind of guy. So for a lot of the luxury brands that end up like going more through like jewelry stores and watch boutiques and stuff like that, that's where the really expensive pens tend to gravitate more towards, is artwork and jewelry and fashion and stuff like that. That's not really our way of doing things, and that's okay. You know, we are who we are here at Goulet Pens. You know, we're good old pen users. You know, we get inky fingers and stuff like that, and it's not really a high fashion kind of deal for us. Not that it has to be. You know, you can certainly appreciate a gorgeous pen and use it every day. You know, we're already having talks with Pilot, you know, with the Namiki pens, the Rodden, excuse me, and the Mach-E and like the really, you know, high-end stuff. I'm learning to appreciate it a lot more from an artistic standpoint and a craftsmanship standpoint. It's not just a fashion piece. So like if we can find a good values alignment in that way, then we're in good shape. So that would certainly be some options. Mont Blanc specifically, probably not going to happen. We've reached out to them before, you know, specifically because we've had so many people ask about their inks, and then, you know, the 149, 146, some of the iconic pens. So we've just kind of, you know, we always do our homework and just kind of like, hey, you know, we start relationship building. You know, we're not ready to carry you yet, but would you ever be open to it? And they've come back and said, you know, we only do brick and mortars. We're really not interested. And it's like, okay, we've been told that from Visconti before. Years ago, we were told that from Lamy. We were told that from Pilot, you know. So eventually, down the road, they may change their tune. You know, we could certainly get into some of that other stuff. You know, we've considered other brands, you know. There's some other higher end brands out there, you know, St. DuPont and David Oscarson and some of these other ones. It's like, I'm not opposed. Like, I'm not fundamentally opposed to any of these brands. It's just, I'm not trying to overreach personally. You know, I'm not trying to go for some of these high-end luxury brands thinking, oh, really expensive pens are where it's at. No, I'm still very much rooted in, you know, Metropolitan, Safaris. Like I honestly love and appreciate pens in all price ranges for what they are. I love Jinhao's, you know, for a lot of reasons. Noodler's pens. So I'm really not discriminatory in any way towards any price range of pen, because I seek to understand what purpose does it serve. You know, these higher end $1,000 pens, they serve a different purpose in a way than a Metropolitan or an All-Star. You know what I mean? But that's what I love personally about being a retailer as I am, is that I get to carry the full breadth of whatever people are interested in, and I get to show and talk about and appreciate all of them. So that's really cool for me. I have a huge range of pens in my personal collection now, and I just think that's really exciting when I kind of know what they're all about. So certainly if there's a good values alignment, if there's good relationship building that happens, if there's good kind of like brand, you know, meeting of the minds of how can we help their brand, how can they serve our community, certainly I would be open to exploring some other luxury brands. But that's really kind of what's number one, is there demand for it, but also is there a good alignment between our companies? That I've found to be one of the most important factors for long-term success of whether a brand will be successful for us. So there we go. And then to kind of close that question up, I'd be curious to know, you know, what, if you could kind of dream a little bit, what would you love to see Goulet pens carry from a luxury brand standpoint? You know, or if you don't want us to get into that, I would actually kind of love some feedback. I'm not going to make that the question of the week this week because I have another one that's pretty good. But I would love to know just kind of like what it is that you would like to see us carry. So I kind of wondered if I would make it with the remaining battery life, and I did not. So I went and grabbed the charger. That's why you see this, saw a little skip in the video there. But I got a couple questions left, and they're good, so I don't want to cut them off. Okay, so these ones that finish them up are kind of the personal questions. This is from Travis W. on Facebook. This is an easy question. Are you keeping the beard? Well, I am so far. It's December, well, as of the recording of this, December 3rd. I can honestly say I'm taking it a day at a time. The whole thing with the beard, right, like I literally, I have never grown a beard like this in my entire life. The most that I ever grew it before this point was when I was 17 years old, and this is going to get into some embarrassing Brian Goulet history. Maybe not embarrassing, I'm actually kind of proud of it, but I was in show choir. That's actually how my wife and I met, is we were both in choir. We met at a state singing event our senior year of high school. We went to separate schools and we met at this 3-day event, and then the rest is history. But anyway, so my school put on an annual madrigal concert. That's basically where you sing, you know, Christmas carols and, you know, old-timey type music, and you dress up in sort of like medieval costumes. And my senior year, I was the madrigal king. So it was very much like a Henry VIII type getup. And I know what you're thinking right now. How can I possibly see a picture of this? Maybe I'll put it out someday as a throwback Thursday or something on Instagram. I don't know. We'll see. You guys are gonna be asking for that now. Good job, Brian. Anyway, so I grew out like a 3-week 17-year-old, you know, well, it wasn't peach fuzz, but it was pretty respectable for a 17-year-old. But I grew it out, and then for a good stage trick, for those of you that don't know, if you're trying to make your beard look more full than it is, or fuller, I guess it would be. Don't judge my grammar. You take mascara and you mascara your facial hair, and it makes it look bolder for on stage. You know, obviously you can tell it's like that if you're looking right up close at somebody, but if you want to get a good stage presence, you can mascara your beard. So anyway, that's what I did when I was 17. Literally ever since then, never grown out more than like a week's worth of kind of laziness vacation beard. Partially because Rachel is just not really into facial hair, and so I was never really going to just test that. And partially because I was never really that interested in it either. But, you know, this past November, got interested in, you know, growing out the beard for a no-shave November kind of thing. Didn't do it for charity or anything. It was more of a Goulet team thing, you know, like most of our guys ended up doing it. We have some heartily bearded folks around here, but, you know, they thought it would be really, really motivational coming into our holiday season if I grew out a beard. So that's what I did. So I grew it out for the whole month of November. I did trim it up a little bit right at the end of the month. But basically, you know, I've been just kind of keeping it for a couple days after that. So I don't know how long I'm going to have it. We'll see. I've gotten used to it, and I've gotten honestly a lot more positive comments about it than I thought I would. Some people are saying I should shave it. It definitely makes me look a little older. I actually kind of like the salt and pepper thing that I've got going on in the beard. You know, I'm actually kind of excited to go gray. That's a little secret about me. My dad went gray very early on, was very salt and pepper ever since I can remember. Now he's like all white silver fox kind of thing, and I just really dig that look. I can't wait to go gray. I'm not joking. It's better to go gray than bald anyway too, so hopefully I don't go both, but we'll see. Who knows? I don't really care that much, but I am excited to go gray. So I like the salt and pepper thing, and more of it shows in my beard, so that's kind of cool. But for the whole beard thing, I don't know. Honestly, I could probably lose it tonight. Who knows? We'll see. Rachel and I are gonna have like a bigger talk about it, but you know, we'll see. We'll see if I'm still in love with it. Everybody else is kind of shaving theirs off now at this point, so I'm kind of one of the few left after the thing. But we'll see. It is warmer. I will say that. For those of you that have never grown any kind of beard, even just this length, I do notice a difference, especially when the wind is blowing. So I could see making it a November thing. You know, maybe if Rachel and I talk and we decide like, you know, look, the beard thing, just no. But I could definitely see doing it just as a November thing, you know? So I don't know. We'll see. 5 years from now, when I go back and watch this video, I'll probably laugh. But we shall see. Time will tell. Gary W. on Facebook is going to close us out with the last questions. Do you use the same inks all the time, or do you change constantly from your sample inventory? It seems to me that you would have an opportunity to change inks often in your fountain pens. I know that you do the ink swabs and perhaps 1 or 2 lines of writing with that ink, but I was wondering if you use ink samples or rotate different ones in and out of your pens. So yeah, I definitely have experience with a lot of different inks in a very limited capacity, swabs and just quick tests and stuff like that. With almost 600 inks, that's hard to get anything but, you know, a quick look at all these different inks on a regular basis. But I will say that I used to ink up my pens with all different kinds of colors because I used to have a much smaller collection of pens. So I would switch the inks out all the time. I was getting to know a lot of inks in the first couple of years of the Goulet Pen Company. Now I know a lot more of the inks. I definitely haven't like used all of them even more than just an ink swab kind of situation. So these days, it's, you know, we are now, as the company's grown, we've expanded more into different pen models. There's not, I mean, pretty much ink, it's just whatever is new and coming out. There's not a lot of new ink brands. You know, we got Visconti, it's a couple more ink colors, but you test those out and it's like, all right, that's those. But there's not, you know, of course I could dive deeper and get to know the inks a little better, which is always fun to do. But as far as like discovering new inks, there just aren't as many new inks to me now as there are new pens. So my focus now has been using more in different pens. And when I'm testing out different pens, I like to keep the paper and the ink a little more consistent so that I learn and understand the pen a little bit better. It's sort of like the scientific method, right? Like you don't want to go changing multiple variables when you're doing experiments, because then if you're noticing different things, you don't know what's actually causing the difference. So if I'm using a pen, I'm like, wow, this pen's really wet. Well, I've never used this ink before. I don't know if it's just this ink that's wet or if it's the pen. So I've found myself wanting to experiment a little less with ink while I'm playing with new pens for the first time. So that I will usually keep a little more consistent. And then the situation that I'm in now, I have a whole team of people on customer care and our media team that are inking up stuff all the time, writing notes, doing, you know, Monday matchup, artwork, other various things. So they are inking up and playing with stuff all the time, which I think is awesome. And I love that they do that. So they're getting to know new stuff all the time, which is great. That's where I was at a couple of years ago. But what that means now is like my personal pens, I don't have to change out inks constantly as much unless I intentionally want to understand an ink better. But I have access to all these inked up pens and inks that my team is using. So if they're ever writing a note and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. What ink is that? What pen? Oh, cool. Can I try it? Boom, boom, boom. I don't have to clean out the pen. I don't have to ink it up. I don't have to do all that stuff. So it's a little bit different for me now that we have more of a team who's playing with ink and stuff all the time. So I don't have to necessarily change inks constantly in my own pens anymore, unless I'm intentionally trying to do that, which I still do plenty. But it's not as much as it used to be kind of in the early days. So just an interesting little observation, and I hadn't really thought about it that deeply until you asked the question. So that's kind of cool. So that said, I still love to play with new ink and pens and stuff like that. But I've gravitated these days a little bit more to getting bottles of ink for myself and then using the bottle in different pens. And then I will usually test out samples of ink with other people's pens. It's kind of an interesting little thing. All right, that is it for me for this week. Thank you very much for coming back. This ended up being a little longer than I intended, but you know, I've just found I'm not capable of talking concisely these days. It's pretty bad. Anyway, so I do have a question of the week for you for this week. Going back a little bit, a couple of questions here, talking about collectors and users. So I'm curious to know, I'm going to do a little engagement, a little analysis here with you. Nothing scientific, but I just love to know. I'm definitely going to read your comments on YouTube and on the blog for this question. I'm curious to know, for you, do you consider yourself more of a user or more of a collector? Or what's your ratio? What's your percentage? So are you 90% user, 10% collector? You know, just look at the pens that you have. Look at how often do you use all the pens? Do you kind of hang on to them? Or, you know, what I would definitely say is you're more of a user. I mean, you are definitely a user if you have kind of a set number of pens, and the ones that you buy, you then cycle out and sell or give away the ones that you don't use as often anymore. That is very much of a user trait. I technically would not consider myself to be a collector. Collectors generally, I think by definition, would stick to a particular brand, a country, an era, or like maybe a color or something like that, and be generally very focused on what it is that they're trying to acquire. That is really what a collector is. I have been reading actually some of Richard Binder's ebooks lately, which are really good, by the way. If you're into pen history and stuff like that, a couple of bucks on iBooks, you can check those out. I've been reading them, very good. He defines a collector as what I just said. And then what did he have for the name that I would consider myself to be? I think it was something like an acquirer or something like that. Basically someone that, maybe that wasn't the word that was used. Dang, I should look that up. Oh well. But basically someone that likes to just get a lot of different pens, and it's not a very structured or organized collection, if you will. You could really call me a hoarder more than anything, because I've never gotten rid of pens. I mean, like the Nighthawks that we just gave away in Thanksgiveaway, I had to like have those pried out of my hands, because I hoard everything, because I'm like, you never know when you're going to need it. Only with pens, really not with much else in my life, but just with my pens. I think it's because of these videos, and it's like, I love being able to shoot a video and go, oh yeah, here's this pen from 5 years ago, boom. I love being able to do that and just kind of pull those out. So yeah, I'm gonna acquire more pens than the average person, and I'm not going to probably ever get rid of any of them until, you know, my kids sell them off at my, you know, wake or whatever. No, that's morbid, but you know what I mean. My kids are going to get into pens. That's going to happen. But anyway, so I'm definitely going to like pass my pens down kind of thing. I'm not going to be selling them anytime soon. My personal ones anyway. So there you go. What do you consider? Longest question of the week ever. What do you consider yourself to be, collector or a user, and what percentage would you get for yourself? That's it for this week. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Over 30,000 subscribers now, pretty rocking, pushing 31, 17,000 on Instagram, crazy, almost 10,000 on Twitter, nutso. You guys are awesome. I love this community. I love being able to do what I do here. It's awesome. Thrilled. Love being back in the groove with the Q&A. It's a lot of fun. Thank you all for everybody who asked questions. Be sure to check out gouletpens.com for anything I've talked about here. I didn't talk a lot about specific products in this one necessarily. I didn't have a lot to show in this one either, so I'm realizing, but that's okay. Have a great week, great weekend. I'll see you next week for another Q&A, and right on.